welcome to Scéalta. My name is Joe Austin, and I am delighted to say that my guest today is coming all the way from Strasbourg. He is a friend of Ireland. He is a Basque MEP. His name is Pernando Barrena, and I'm sure I haven't pronounced that quite properly. And he is an elected member of Scéalta, which is a Basque party that struggles for Basque freedom and Basque independence. So, Pernando, thank you for being my guest today.
Thanks so much. You are always welcome.
Okay, can I just explain for anyone who's just joined us that Scéalta is a joint production of Fáilte Fíorsta Here and Phobail and Phobail, and I want to thank the James Connolly Centre for facilitating the interview. So, Pernando, I have described you as an MEP, but your journey to becoming an MEP has been a very difficult journey, I have to say. You have been a political prisoner. You have been someone who has known the oppression of the Spanish state. So tell me how you got to be an MEP. What was that journey?
Well, it's quite a classical way done by a Basque activist in the side of pro-independence politics and in the side of leftist politics. I became a member of the Basque left very, very young when I was 16. I can remember. Since that moment, I've lived a life quite close to volunteering in different pro-independence initiatives. Some of them political, and some others in the defense of the Basque language as our own language that has unfortunately still to be defended because of the diglossy it suffers to Spanish and French as well. So it's been a long time that volunteering and that bet in favor of pro-independence and internationalism brought me to Ireland in the 80s. And I was very young, and I had the great pleasure to know a place I always feel too close to, not the place, but particularly its people and its struggle.
I kind of think I first met you around about 1988 when you were here as part of a Basque delegation. Mm-hmm. And there is often the parallels that are drawn between the struggle for Irish freedom and the struggle for Basque freedom. And you mentioned the Basque language, which of course, for many hundreds of years, and certainly since, I don't know, has been oppressed, like the Irish language. Are there similarities between the Basque struggle and the Irish struggle?
Well, the first time I visited Ireland, it was 1987 on a holiday shared with a group of friends. At that time, we discovered a political reality very close to ours, as regards to history and an occupied country, a country that has always strived for its own freedom and for the preservation of its language and finally the right to become a whole political entity of its own. A country as well that because of invasions and different considerations had a language, a local language, national language that was in clear disadvantage to English, and we met a lot of friends, a lot of people that was struggling for the Irish Republic, for the reunification of Ireland and in favor of the Irish language. It was at that time, I can remember, it was 87, that we were told when being in Belfast that a group of good people was thinking about a big festival in the to be starting on the following year, the 88th, and we decided that it had to be a good thing, that we had to be there. And we went back. We went back to Belfast in the 88th, so we witnessed the first Feuille and Phobail, and we enjoyed it very, very much. I still keep a big box of slides of that time, and I sometimes switch on the projector and see how Belfast has changed in the last 34 years. So we always have felt like at home in Ireland, and basically because we connected very, very quickly and very easily with Republican activists and language activists. It was like meeting a part of the family we didn't know till that moment.
It was like meeting cousins who you hadn't seen for a while.
That kind of cousins. Yeah, you in regular life you only visit or have meetings with them in weddings and such kind of things. But this was a kind of relativeness feeling, very important for us.
I mentioned the fact that you had been a political prisoner. In fact, I think you've been a political prisoner on a number of occasions.
Well, I first was sent to prison when I was 18. They accused me of a fake thing happened in Iruña against a member of the Spanish police. I was released in just a month, but I want to mention that because to give a vision of what was going to jail at that time was 85. In the brief or in the short month I spent in jail at the moment, I was brought over 4 different prisons, quite far from the Basque country. The farthest it was 700 kilometers far. It was just a month, but that I would say marked my life in the sense that perhaps all those that carried or still carries out that kind of procedures against dissidency think that imprisoning people brings them to give up. At that time, I also have to say that I was a youngster. It was completely the opposite. I believe that what happened to me was completely unfair, and that I had to deepen my engagement with the Basque liberation movement. And the second time I was sent to jail was in 2008. At that time, the Spanish government waged a strong offensive against the Basque independentist left. They banned our political party. They banned some organizations linked to the Basque movement. They even closed down newspapers and radio station, and they finally decided to bring to prison, to bring to jail the leadership of the Batasuna party at that time. So I spent 2 years in prison, being accused of being a member of the ETA leadership, which was completely wrong, of course. And I still remember that everybody's surprised at looking to my accusation papers, because all the alleged crimes I commit, according to the Spanish prosecution, was that when Batasuna was banned, I offer some press conferences, and I participate in political discussions, and even that I travel some places around Europe to talk about the position of the Basque nationalist left. So all of them political activities that were used as an accusation in a supposed democratic state in the European Union. A total shame that sometimes has to be remembered.
It's even from our own history, from Irish history and more recent Irish history, while the British government violated political rights of its opposition, I don't even think the British government would have the audacity in the 80s to try and do to the Irish what the Spanish state done to the Basque people, just to remove anyone who doesn't subscribe to the Spanish authority. You're in prison.
Well, British were not so bad as regards to repressive measures. I can remember Jerry Adams and Martin McGuinness and some others being overvoiced in the RTE media broadcasts. It was not that when I was there in the 80s and in the early 90s, as far as I can remember.
Yeah. Right.
And it was for us a kind of incredible measure that reflects how this repressive machinery has worked out for years and decades. And this repressive attitude by the British and the Spanish governments have as well a lot of common. I also remember the complicity between some loyalist paramilitaries and the British intelligence and the British army and so on to pass on information on Republican targets and so on, and that's been quite similar here in the past with death squads that funded by public money attacked and killed Basque activists in the 80s and in the 90s. So unfortunately, this kind of behavior has happened both in our countries. Yeah.
And I know that the Basque comrades, they followed political events here very closely. The IRA ceasefires, the political progress that had been made, the initiative that the Basque took in order to move the peace process forward with the Spanish authorities was quite often frustrated by the Spanish. Tell me, what is the situation now with those Basque prisoners who are still being held in Spanish prisons?
So you surely know that a peace process was delivered here. We started here 12 or 15 years ago here in the Basque country, but to be okay understood, it's important to have in mind that the Irish peace process was a bilateral peace process in which both parts or three parts engaged to deliver a final agreement. You know, in the context of the Basque country, when the Basque independentist movement decided to engage in a full political and peaceful way and kickstart a peace process. We did not didn't get any kind of positive answer on the side of the Spanish government. They denied that any conflict existed. They said that that kind of speech will be quite familiar for you, I suppose. They say that the only conflict was that created by ETA itself, by the use of armed struggle and violence and blah 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 blah. So they never engaged in any kind of peace settlement or agreed end to armed struggle and to any kind of political settlement. So the Basque process is a completely unilateral process that has a great advantage, and it is that when things are done on a unilateral basis, because you believe on that, and because you think that engaging on that, you will become politically more powerful, and you will bring a groundbreaking scenario to your country for good, of course. The good thing is that you are in the whole control of that, and you are the owner of the timing, and you are the owner of the initiatives. And we did like that for some years, and were able to create that new political situation in the Basque Country. But this unilateral scheme has a problem, which is the issue of prisoners, because the key of the cells are still on the hands of the Spaniards, and on spite that the vast majority of the Basque society, not now, it's a thing that comes from the last 10 years, I would say. On spite that the vast majority of the Basque society is saying that prisoners must be released, and initially that they have to be the closest to in jails and the closest to their living places. This has not been solved at the moment. Some biggest improvements have been done, because at the beginning of the process we had more than 700 political prisoners, and they are 190 at this moment. But things are still like that. For the last year and a half, some engagement on the Spanish government side has been done, and now we can say that most of the Basque political prisoners, not all of them, but at least 2/3 of the Basque political prisoners, are in prisons the closest to the Basque country. So that's a great breakthrough, particularly for the living conditions and for their families. But we still have that bold point in the agenda that has to be resolved as quick as possible. We believe that there's no social, either political normalization while people is still in jail because of political reasons. So at the moment we are trying to take some advantage of our political situation at this moment, and to grasp the opportunities we have in our hands to bring the situation to an end, and empty up all the prisoners of Basque political activists.
I said at the beginning, jokingly, I said that political activists find many different expressions to carry out their activism. You happen to be in the Grand Palace of Strasbourg. I see the grandeur behind you. Mm-hmm. Does being in Europe, does it offer you opportunities that perhaps you wouldn't have normally? Can you use Europe to the advantage of the Basque people?
Well, I think that working in such an institution like this, like the European Parliament, or some other colleagues do in the Spanish Parliament in Madrid, have some contradictions that have to be managed. I think that because in the case of this European institution, we are quite we have strong criticism against the role that this institution has played in the past and still plays right now. We believe in Europe, of course we do, but not the Europe that has built in the recent decades in the clear benefit of big merchants and the transatlantic military bond led by the United States. We believe in a Europe that has its own role to play in world politics in the world as regards to the world power sharing, or as we could say, but not in the Europe we have now in hand. So we are focusing our our work here in that direction from a very clear perspective that we are not here to serve the institution. Of course, we do institutional work and take part in the different files and reports that are dealt with in the committees and other groups here, work groups here in the parliament. But our main goal is to make know to the rest of the members of the parliament, and to all the lobbying groups and any kind of interest groups that work around the parliament, what the situation in the Basque country is, what the aspiration of the Basque country as a nation to be part of Europe as a state are, and what are the most relevant needs that the Basque country has at this moment. On the side of economics and some other points, of course, always in favor of the most needed and the working class, but particularly on the side to bring to an end the consequences of the Basque violent conflict as regards to prisoners, victims, and some other issues that have still to be dealt. So that's the work we do here, and we have the pleasure to do it in the group of the left parliamentarian group, along some other comrades from Europe, like Sinn Féin, for instance, that has here a very good representative, Chris McManus from Sligo, and as it had in the past at the beginning of the term with Matt Carthy and Martina Anderson, that are great friends.
You mentioned, or I mentioned perhaps, the similarities between the Basque struggle and the Irish struggle, and the great friendship that we share for each other, each other's culture and identity and history. In fact, when you worked in one of the publishing houses, you were able to translate Bobby Sands' diary and some of Gerry Adams's book. Were they read by the Basque people? Were they widely read?
I will say they're quite popular. I worked for a publishing house, as you know, and at that time we published Bobby Sands' One Day in My Life, and some other short stories collections by Gerry Adams, and some other essays written by him. I think that those publishings. Those editions have helped a lot to make better known, because the Irish struggle is very well known in the Basque country, but sometimes we felt that they have to be better known as regards as the real goals of the Republican movement and so on. The Republican movement, let's talk frankly, 20 years ago in the Basque country was very broadly known from a feeling of solidarity and similarity to our struggle, but no much more information was available to the general public. It was important to us to bring the ideas of republicanism, Irish republicanism to the Basque, on the sense to introduce them as very reasonable ideas that in the context of a negotiation process and the Good Friday Agreement 20 years ago and 20-something years ago and all that time were called to play a significant political role, that from which we were learning a lot, and those learnings were subsequently used here in the Basque country, and I think that they fulfilled that purpose, that not to know about the struggle, but to know about the principles and the fairness of those principles.
That's a very interesting point, and I think that, you know, the Basque people have suffered indignities beyond doubt, and cultural oppression imprisonment and physical oppression, historically and currently. Currently in Europe, we see the Ukraine-Russian situation, and we see a long queue of European countries who wish to speak out in support of Ukraine and against Russia. I feel that many of those countries have found a conscience quite recently, that when other conditions prevailed for other people, they weren't as vocal as they should have been. Is that an experience? Do you share that experience, or do you have a view on it?
Well, I think that as regards to the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, first of all, we have to start saying very clearly that we defend a bold position against war, against the occupation of Ukraine. We believe in the right for self-determination, and in this case, the right for self-determination of Ukraine. It's been attacked and not respected, and it's the first thing we have to say, because there are some other dozen of considerations you have to take into account in order to fully understand what is the conflict on the ground, But the first thing is to say that war brings peoples to nowhere. Only to destruction and bad situations, and of course we have to say that Russia is responsible 100% of the for the war, and that has to withdraw as quick as possible from Ukrainian territory. But along that, we, for example, the last week in a special plenary session here in the Parliament, the Parliament condemned the Russian aggression against Ukraine, but we decided to abstain in the final vote of the resolution, because along that condemn of the invasion, some other points introduced that, according to our opinion, were not correct. We think that being against the Russian occupation doesn't mean that you have to support the NATO led scheme and the European forced alignment to that transatlantic military bond. We believe in another European security scheme, not led by forces out of Europe. Europe needed sound security scheme to play a role, a strong role in world politics. And besides that, we believe that sending weaponry to Ukraine to further escalate the conflict is not the way. The way now is dialogue, is diplomacy, is political agreements to bring the war to an end and not to escalate the wars. And of course, we cannot support decisions taken by the European Commission, for instance, the censorship against some Russia-linked media. That I think that supposes a big attack against democracy and the freedom of speech. We have the right to know what the Russian media says, as the Russians, of course, have the same right to know what the Western thinking says about their stance or the developments of the war. So I think it's very important to be to position against war, but not giving a mere chance to a new world order led by the NATO forces and the United States, because they will not bring. NATO is not a force for dialogue and diplomacy and negotiation. NATO is a military alliance that will not respect Europe's autonomy as regards to security.
Thank you, and I think that's a view that most people in Ireland would share, that Irish neutrality is very important to people. I also think that the energy now needs to be placed into a cessation of conflict and then a resolution of the problem. A few years back, people in Ireland watched the situation unfold in Catalonia and the brutality of the oppression of the Catalonian democratic wishes. Mm-hmm. And we believed that, wrongly, but we believed that this would surely bring about a sea change, a major political change within the Spanish thinking. Now, unfortunately, it didn't, and the Catalonian situation hasn't been resolved. What is the current situation in the Basque country regarding autonomy, independence, Basque rights, and the respect of those rights? Where are we now?
Well, the Basque country situation now, as regards to self-government claims and so on, it's quite paradoxical. On the one side, political parties in favor of more self-government, in favor of the right to self-determination, or even openly independentist, are conform a clear majority, particularly in the Basque Autonomous Parliament, and even in the Parliament of the Navarre province. Those forces are growing quite significantly. But on the other side, the situation, the political situation we are still managing in the Basque country, it's quite far from that they have in Catalonia at this moment, because we are still dealing with the consequences of an armed conflict that was enforced for too many years, that still has significant aspects that have to be solved, as I mentioned to you before, as prisoners, the issue of victims, and some others. So we could say that the Basque politics are much more focused on those points, and that the Catalan society, on the other side, 10 years ago, realized that a new independentist majority was conformed in Catalonia. They were completely fed up of the mistreatment by the Spanish government as regards not only to core political things as the right to decide and so on, but some other more practical, let's say, as taxes, political relationship, and so on, and decided that independence was the only way forward. That way was supported by more than half of the Catalan population. They tried to bring that to a referendum that was banned by the Spanish government and heavily attacked, as you said. That brought as well the devolution of powers of the Catalan powers to Madrid, and brought the Catalan president to exile, and not only himself, but also some other members of the government. Some of them, for instance, are here as MEPs now. They were elected as MEPs and can go back to Catalonia and live and are living in Brussels because well, you surely know that we members of the parliament are have a kind, or enjoy a kind of particular status according to which we can travel all around Europe and have freedom of movement and immunity before any kind of legal procedure that is not supported by the parliament itself. So legally, these Catalan MEPs could not be arrested if they decide to go to Catalonia, for example. But they perfectly know as well that they would be arrested because the Spaniards would not pay any kind of respect to that kind of immunity. So they have to live as exiles. And now the situation in Catalonia is a bit complicated because there's a big split within the independentist movement between the two main political parties represented by Junts per Catalonia and Esquerra Republicana, that have different views on how to proceed in the near future as regards to the independence movement. We, from the Basque Country, can only say that we support the right to aspire to be an independent state, if that is supported by the majority of the Catalan population. We believe that that kind of developments only need the democratic support of people to go forward, and not permission by any external agent. And in that case, we would support that very, very openly and very, very warmly as well.
In terms of the way forward that we all are seeking for peace, justice, stability, identity, national freedom, where do you go? Where does the Basque struggle go from here? Is it a continual interrogation of what Spain's intentions are, or is it protests or mass demonstrations? So where do you go?
Well, we at this moment we are trying to implement a dual way that, on the one hand, takes on account the particular situation we have now in the Spanish state as regards to the Spanish politics. We have a serious threat by the far right to become a government force in a short time. If the forces on the left are not able to agree or come on the ground to avoid that situation, and for us, we believe that would be a disaster, not only for the Basque or Catalan liberties, but also for workers' rights and social rights, not only here in our country, but in the whole in Spanish state. And it happens that because of the parliamentarian mathematics, the Labour government of the Socialist Party of Mr. Pedro Sanchez needs our MEPs' votes to pass budgets and some important laws in the Spanish parliament. So we are trying to grasp that big opportunity in order to proceed to some changes that I have mentioned to you as regards to the end of the consequences of the Basque conflict, and to open a new political situation in the country. And secondly, as regards to the more specific political activity, we are trying to engage the closest we can some different political and social forces, even trade unions that play a very important role here in the Basque country, to put as much pressure as we can on the defense of the right for self-determination, not on the defense of a purely independentist ticket, that it's completely legitimate as far as I understand it, but in defense of the right to decide, that entitle every citizen, nevertheless, which opinion he can have, that entitles every citizen to decide on the future of his or her own country. We believe that there is a democratic principle that have to be supported, and that have to be politics. The point is that that claim and that work for unity of the people in defense of the right to decide has a big problem. That is that the Basque Nationalist Party, that at this moment is not working in that direction, but they are keeping doing politics on the same way they did in the last 20, 30 years, trying to get political interesting deals for them and for the upper classes. They represent economic powerful classes. They represent the business class, as we call it. So we have that obstacle at this moment for the developing of that way. But on the other side, I have to be optimistic and say that for the last 10 years, the coalition, the political coalition that brings together the left pro-independence forces, Euskal Herria Bildu, that brought me to this parliament, and that is the first municipal force in the Basque country, and well, it's in good shape, in very good health, growing up both politically and electorally, and I believe that we will be in very good condition to dispute clearly with the Basque the Basque Nationalist Party, the ruling of governments in the different provinces in the country, and in the Basque and the Navarrese governments as a whole.
Pernando, we're almost out of time, and I've kept the most difficult question, but maybe the best question for the last. When are you coming back to Ireland?
Well, because of the imprisonment I suffered from 2008 to 2011, I was banned. Even when I was released, I was banned from political activity and from traveling out of the Spanish state. And I had a ban for 10 years that made me impossible to go back to Ireland. The last time I was in Belfast was in the Phobail 2007 for a conference in the Cultureland with Martin O'Miller and some other friends, and that ban was released a couple of years ago. I went to Derry before the Brexit, the week before the Brexit, to meet some relevant representatives in that beautiful city, brought and invited by Martina Anderson. It was a wonderful experience, and I hope to be back this same year. Let's hope that will happen to Belfast and share some pints with some old friends there in Belfast. So it would be a wonderful experience. I'm willing to be there. Yeah.
Pernando, we're looking forward to seeing you in Belfast. So for your time today, I know you have meetings to rush off to. Thank you for the work that you've done, and thank you for the advice and the help that you've given over many years, and the support to the struggle for Irish freedom and Irish national identity. So thank you. Let's see you then.
Eskerrik asko. Agur.